Hello air signs Libra, Aquarius and Gemini. Welcome to the Aquarius full moon. You'll find the timestamps for your rising sign listed below. Hello Libra rising, welcome to your horoscope for the full moon in Aquarius. This is happening on the 2nd of August at 4:33 a.m. if you're in the southern hemisphere with me. So again, for your full moon rituals, either the Tuesday night or the Wednesday night, unless you wanted to get up really early on the Wednesday to get it at exactitude. Now, first of all, before we go anywhere, I want to do a little bit of aftercare after Mars and Saturn in opposition. That happened, if you recall, in my last horoscope. There was a moment of real friction and possible tension. When I look at your birth chart, Libra rising, that would have been between your 12th house, which is the hidden parts of ourselves, almost like our internal work, and the 6th house, which is our external work, our physical self. So I hope that your health is in good shape. I hope that if there were any scares in relationship to your outer vessel, that you can work with that. And the good news is that at this full moon in Aquarius, we've got another opposition with Saturn, but this time it's Mercury. And so Mercury is really at home in Virgo. They're one of the Virgo is ruled by Mercury. There's two signs that are ruled by Mercury. That's Gemini and Virgo. And so as far as Virgo representing your unconscious realm, your hidden work, there might be some extra intel or extra messaging that you can reflect upon from that last Mars and Saturn opposition. Hopefully there's some solutions that come to you in relationship to either your physical vessel itself or your daily ritual, how you're sort of spending time in the day-to-day, your sort of maybe habits that have sort of developed over time that can be addressed or can be solved, or perhaps there's extra work that needs to be done to make sure that your physical self is feeling in tip-top condition, or there's some solutions for healing. That might be something that's occurring at this full moon too, which we can look forward to, I think. So Aquarius rules your 5th house, Libra, which is where we express ourselves. It's got a lot to do with creativity and with pleasure as well. The 5th house can be a home for our inner child too sometimes. And so this full moon will be a lovely evening for you to access the gratitude for a culmination of work. Perhaps you've been toiling away at something creatively that you can finally put out into the world, or you can finally set tools down for a moment and be proud of the process, be proud of the work. Or there might be something in you that just needs to be let out to say hello for a little while. Aquarius is an air sign, as you are, Libra rising, and Aquarius innovates. They really think to the future. There's something kind of original about Aquarius. So maybe in that way you can relate that to your creative self. You can relate that to your specific or your unique way of expressing yourself. It doesn't mean that you have to be quite literally an artist. It doesn't mean that you need to be standing in front of a microphone or have paintbrushes in your hands, but definitely as far as translating the world around you and that sort of coming through you and you giving that out. That's what we're talking about here. So this will be a great full moon for that imaginative side of you. I had a beautiful reading a couple of days ago, and we did a lot of inner child work, and we did a lot of sort of excavation of a time when we weren't fettered by self-consciousness so much. Takes a little while to go back there as well, particularly if you have to think about when was the time where you weren't criticized, or when was the time where you felt unfettered by self-consciousness enough to express yourself and to, kind of shout it from the rafters. Aquarius likes to do that too. There's something about kind of like they've got a megaphone and they're at a rally. That's sometimes how I like to think about Aquarius in their kind of communal spirit, their sort of cooperative nature. So that's the moon. It's a big bright Aquarius moon, and it's going to bring with it some great shedding. So if you've been thinking about yourself in terms of failure, this would be the moon to set that down, to set that judgment and that criticism of yourself down, and to, maybe even if you were to write a letter to the little one that you used to be, and remember how cool they probably think you are now, if I'm honest. That's something that sort of helps me through sometimes when I'm feeling self-conscious, or I'm feeling out of my depth or embarrassed or things like that. I often think about the little version of myself. I kind of have crystallized it to about 5, I think. The 5-year-old version of me would consider or witness me now and think, golly, Uma's really cool. So if you can harness some of that sort of self-love at this full moon, that would be really awesome as well, Libra. I think we could all do with a little bit of that, especially with those nodes having just changed sign too, where there is a focus on Aries, there is a focus on kind of self-confidence. For you, that's in your 7th house of relationships. So know that you're really good at relationships, Libra rising. Know that you're really available for that. Part of your kind of soul makeup is to find the harmonics in relationship. And the next 18 months, there might be a sort of kind of deluge in that part of your life, as far as maybe even relationships chopping and changing and switching around. There might be a burgeoning sense of renewal in yourself, that you're coming to the table as a different person than you used to be, as the person you are now, who has a certain perspective on life and chooses to spend their time in a certain way. The tarot card that I'm looking at here for the moon, so I think it's 9 degrees of Aquarius. So it's in the first decan this moon. We're sort of only a week into Leo season, and we've got a full moon in Aquarius. So the card for that is the 5 of Swords. And when I look at this card, I always look at the decision to move along. There has definitely been a battle here, a battle of the mind. There's definitely been some barbs thrown, and a sort of, tete-a-tete or duel that's been going on. And there's 2 folks in the background of this card that have set swords down and are walking away. The one in the foreground is sort of collecting the spoils of their battle and collecting those swords. I don't think that there's anything victorious about this card, if I'm honest, Libra. There's something kind of smug about this person in the foreground. So if we relate this to your 5th house and relate this to ideas or thoughts about the value of your work, or the value of your creativity, the value of your perspective being less important than other folks, then this would probably be the moon to set those swords down. In tarot, the swords are our thoughts. Always remember that, they're a sort of mentality that develops. And so if this has been a battle for you as far as the worth of your individual contribution, it's time to put those barbs to rest. Put those swords down. It's not really worth it. Now, there's a couple of other planetary configurations that I wanted to talk about too. So Mars has moved on. Mars is still in Virgo, so Mars is still lingering in your 12th house of the hidden world, your unconscious private chambers, but at 13 degrees now, and they've just formed a really helpful trine with Jupiter at 13 degrees in Taurus. And so Jupiter for you is your 8th house of collaborative resources and of grief. Sometimes we can talk about inheritance and things like that in the 8th house too, or it's often, isn't it funny how sort of like grief and finance sometimes get intermingled depending on. Okay, here we go. This is something that I wanted to talk about. I'm not so sure if it's appropriate, Libra, but I'm going to, just skip on through if it's not interesting. I had a brief conversation with a good friend of mine that was talking about how money after death can really tear people and relationships apart. There's something about greed that sort of rears its head when dealing with closing down an estate or something like that. And it was just a brief chat, but we both kind of felt it. We both felt a bit sort of sad on behalf of witnessing other folks going through the ins and outs of a will, or the ins and outs of settling an estate, and how relationships can combust. This is sort of maybe tied to this sort of Mars energy. We know that Mars can be incredibly bolshy, and sometimes there can be some anger there. But this, between the 8th and the 12th, this is a trine. So remember, when it's Earth to Earth is what we're doing right now, it's helpful. It's a resource. So my mind's going back to that opposition with Mars and Saturn. I think it was on the 23rd, a couple of days after the full moon, and the friction that may have happened there, or the explosion, or the tower moment. And so hopefully now Jupiter, the planet that brings with it good fortune and optimism and kinship, hopefully this configuration now can ease up a little bit on that tension or that pressure. It's not to say that that's been happening for you, that there's been difficulty in your familial relationships as far as an estate, but just that concept of sort of like the pentacles of life. We've got the 6 of Pentacles here, which is what we're working with Jupiter at this full moon. I like this card because it sort of really tells us that there is enough for everyone, really, truly. If we consider that money is an invention of the human species, and that when you're working with your resources and you have enough to spare, the best thing you can do is pay it forward. And when you're in a space of need, you can trust that there'll be folks around you that can support you in what it is that you do require. So this is Jupiter that we're working with right now. I like this. And if I look at the other tarot card that I have for Mars, right now at 13 degrees of Virgo, it's the 9 of Pentacles. So coming back to the garden in some way, I think, Libra, coming back to a space of, I know I use the word a lot, autonomy, but it's kind of, it's an important thing for us to feel that we are autonomous, that we aren't controlled or at the whim or the mercy of other folks, that we do have a sense of kind of individual freedom in this life. This is going on in your 12th house, and we know that sometimes the 12th can be hard to reconcile because it's kind of hidden. It is a bit sort of shut away. I'm just coming back to that idea of like the dance between the inner work and the outer work too. I think that might be something that you can probably look at, that balance at this full moon in Aquarius, Libra. Have a little think about your internal workings and the health of your hidden realms, and also how that's maybe showing up or expressing itself in your physical world, the world around you. Well, to close it out, I think I'd like to remember that Aquarius is your 5th house of your creative self-expression, your inner child work. So maybe that might just be a beautiful meditation for you to work with as you look and enjoy the brightness of this full moon in Aquarius. I think that sometimes, I know that I am quite good at it, but I give these horoscopes and all of this advice, and really the physical act of staying in company with the moon, especially when the moon is full, and taking that, if it's 5 minutes, could be the whole evening. If you've got a banana lounge, you can go and sit out underneath it if it's nice weather. But there's a beautiful brightness to a full moon, a blue light, and a silence too. Enjoy the silence, Libra. Enjoy the silence. That's your reading. Much love to you. Thank you very much for being here with me. I will be with you in 2 weeks to talk about the new moon in Leo. So that will be looking in opposition to your individual self. That will be out into your communities and your friendships. So that'll be a nice moment of manifestation to find the tribe if that's what you're looking for. If you're still here, please do put a star in the comments. That would be really nice in honor of Aquarius. I would love that. And you can head to Umarubi and get your birth chart read by me. I actually have an example of what we work with in those readings. My technique has sort of developed over the years that I've been doing this, and it started off as just little squiggles and scribbles, notes that I could refer to, but I found the sort of taking the time and the sort of simple act of drawing out the chart and making it beautiful helps me remember it too. I don't often find that I'm looking too much to my notes because the chart's in my body. I've done it. It's come through me, through the pen, and so it's in my physical self before the reading. So yeah, if you'd like your birth chart read, this is what you have to look forward to. You can tip me at buymeacoffee.com, and that's it. Much love to you, darling. Do comment if you can. Subscribe to the channel if you can. I want to get the work out as much as I possibly can. I'm looking forward to growth myself, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care, Libra. I love you. Bye. Hello, Aquarius rising. Welcome to your horoscope for the full moon in Aquarius. This is happening on Wednesday, the 2nd of August at 4:33 a.m. if you're in the Southern Hemisphere with me. So again, the night before or the night of is fine to do your full moon magic. The moon will still be really bright and juicy. It will be exactly full at 4:33 a.m. This is your first house, my darling. This is your house of your soul's rising intention. If you follow the esoteric philosophy as I do, our rising sign does hold some sort of clue as to our soul's potential in this lifetime. It sounds lofty. It's also a lovely thing to relax into, that this work really kind of starts in like the 3rd chapter of our life. But it's great to sort of develop awareness about it and to sort of bring that sentiment to the surface. That's why I read these horoscopes for the rising sign rather than your sun sign, which is your identity, your sort of personality. And it also is sort of a clue to how a birth chart works as well. Our rising sign does set off our house system. So there you go. This is about you, darling. This is about everything that you are, everything that you hope to become, and what you're bringing to this life, what you're using your incredible intelligence and your foresight for. As we step into and dip our toes into the unknown and the fear around artificial intelligence and the future sort of speeding up and innovation coming at a rate of knots by the weeks and months as opposed to the years, this is where you come into our aid during this time, Aquarius. You get to use your rapid mind and your incredible intellect to guide us to a space of love, of moving love and life for all of us thirsty human beings. I'm paraphrasing the esoteric philosophy, but God, I love your soul mantra out of all of them. I really do, Aquarius. I've got my little star card here that's helping me along too. This is you, remember. You are the star. You are the one that is unafraid. You are the one that is possibly sent from another realm to come and help us out, because we're in trouble at the moment, aren't we? It's too much information, too much endless news cycling, too much opinion as well. I think that probably what I'm looking forward to, probably at this full moon, is a bit of a cleanse of the over-examination of the information. And this is not to stick my head in the sand at all. I think that it's our responsibility to be politically informed. I really do believe that. I think that every so often it's good to have a bit of a cleanse. You know, it's the same with, you know, drinking alcohol or whatever. It's good to have some time off if you recognize that it's become habitual, and if you recognize the effect on your physical self because of that endless consumption of information. You're the person for it. You know, you can handle it, Aquarius, can't you? I also think that you don't have to handle it all the time. Maybe sometimes it's good just to sort of turn it off, and it's good to get out into the open air. Go and enjoy this full moon. I think if there's probably just one full moon per year that you can really commit to, Aquarius, I know you're busy, but this would be the full moon to stand underneath and to take in that silvery light, to look around and see your eyes sort of refocusing in the darkness. I love how everything goes blue, that sort of silvery blue when there's a full moon. And the different colours, the green of the natural world sort of turns like an inky sort of bluey black. It's really pretty. That's just a simple exercise in perception that actually came from my painting teacher when I was at university. I studied in the fine art department. I have a bachelor in fine art, you know. Great. But one of my beautiful lecturers was talking about perception and talking about what does green look like at night. That was really one thing that really stuck with me. I'd never really maybe asked that question of myself before, but it was a beautiful exercise into just sort of snapping back into right here, right now, and feeling out, you know, perceiving the world around me in a different way. Yeah. So I wanted to do a little bit of aftercare after the Mars and Saturn opposition. I know for some people that was very difficult, and it did bring some real tension and a bit of a tower moment. So I just wanted to check in with you and to let you know that Mercury has in fact taken Mars's place in opposition to Saturn at this full moon. And we know that Mercury is right at home in Virgo. They're really working it there. That's their sort of home base, one of them, that in Gemini. And so as far as the intelligence that is being fed to you right now, this is what we can sort of maybe trust a little more. Virgo does rule your 8th house, which is the house of grief, of intense emotions, and of cutting the cord. It also does have a lot to do with the way that our energy is intertwined and intermingled with other folks as well. So as far as our resources, both, you know, fiscal and emotional. And so this is where that opposition with Mars was. Pisces being your 2nd house of your values, your coin, your resources. This is what we're working with over the next couple of years as well, Aquarius, is strengthening up your resolve as far as what it is that you're capable of and what you're worth by yourself. But that opposition that I was describing 2 weeks ago, it happened on the 23rd, so a couple of days after the full moon, that weekend after the full moon, I would say. And that was a jolt. I think Saturn and Mars, that was like oofed. But now Mercury is here to do the aftercare and to perhaps bring with it some clarity. So this is happening an hour or two after this full moon as well. Another thing to think about is that Mercury will be stationing retrograde in Virgo at the end of the month on August the 24th, I think. So we're going to be working with this house, the 8th house for you Aquarius. We're going to be sort of going over and reassessing our 8th house until about September. So we've got Venus retrograde in Leo and Mercury will be retrograde in Virgo. Sorry if that's confusing, but it's a lot of relationship work, a lot of your 7th house of love and connection, having a beautiful support from Venus, some pleasure finally, but a sort of lingering sort of pleasure, perhaps a reassessment of how you enter romantic relationships or how you enter intimate partnerships. This could be in business too. And Mercury retrograde in your 8th house of saying sayonara or having to go over how our resources are intermingled with other folks. You might be strategizing, perhaps putting a long-standing coupling to sleep, or there might be some there might be a process of closing down an estate or something like that too. But know that Mercury will have stationed retrograde in Virgo, so you have that support. You definitely have an encouragement to take it slow and to really go over the checks and balances. Sometimes when Mercury has stationed retrograde, there can be some mistakes that are made, or there can be some cross wires. So take it slow, I think, Aquarius. Take it really as slow as you need, I think. The tarot card for this full moon, it's one of yours. So it's the 5 of Swords. This is about dropping the chop, about setting down the quibbles and the battles. This is about the swords representing our thoughts or perhaps truth weaponized, and setting it down and being like, I'm not engaging in this sort of game anymore. This is kind of finished for me. So I think that I really like this for you at this full moon to be really like, if there is things that are external, that are ongoing, a continual battle, a continual argument, there'll be a great opportunity at this full moon to put that away. Maybe not once and for all, because we know this is what we've got to work with astrology, with the tarot, with our lives. You know, everything is a cycle. Things end and then they begin again, but perhaps in different form, hopefully sometimes. That's why I like to look at the Fool in the tarot, the cosmic egg, the zero. The Fool is replenished and is free to step off that cliff unafraid. See a cliff, jump off, as Genesis Pioge says. I'm going to pull you some intuitive tarot, I think, Aquarius. I got this beautiful new deck, actually, this is probably the first reading that I'm doing with it in public. I went to see a lovely friend, a new friend that I've read for, play at the Forum Theatre here in Melbourne, in a lovely, incredible band that I'm so grateful to have on my playlist. But I was gifted this beautiful deck as a celebration of our coming together face to face. So let's have a look. Let's see what this deck has in store for you. I got the Queen of Cups. Ooh. I got the Queen of Wands. And I got the Tower. Ooh, there's that Queen of Cups and Queen of Wands again, Aquarius. Now, if you recall from our journey together, these two queens show up all the time. I'm going to show you these drawings because they're kind of, I hope you can see them clear enough. This is just a beautiful deck. Will have to remind myself of who drew it because the box is over there and I can't see it. Let's continue. Let's stay in this space. The Queen of Cups is someone with a lot of water energy, which is our emotional selves. This is someone really empathetic and really patient in matters of feeling. They've got a lot of time to listen to you and to work through, perhaps unpick some of the harder emotions. And the Queen of Wands is a fiery, beautiful, confident, passionate energy. This is someone who has found their inner flame again. And this is someone who actually is really good at picking that in other people too. They can really lift people up when working in a really kind of positive light. The Queen of Wands is really expressive and demonstrative in their nature. The Tower is built on unstable foundations. The Tower comes to us when something that we've been building, something that we've been kind of pouring all of our time and energy into, was never really going to work out. We can kind of, as much as it looks ferocious, we can trust the Tower because it's coming from an external source that has recognized that those foundations just are not going to hold. So they blast it down abruptly in order for us to start again. So I want you to think about the Queen of Cups and who you're reminded of when I describe these possibilities. And remember that we can all be a queen. There's no gender in tarot. There's no gender in the queens of the tarot. We all have the potential to be a queen if we want to. So the Queen of Cups is, I wonder who this Tower is affecting. Or I wonder if this Tower that is coming your way, this sort of unstable foundation, this, and you probably, as soon as I'm talking about this, you know what I'm saying. You can think in your life, you can be like, oh God, okay, that's what Uma's describing, right? Okay, I knew that it wasn't going to work, but I'd hoped that it would. I really hoped that it would sort of come to fruition, but just as time goes on, I'm really feeling the instability of that. In esoteric astrology, the sacred mantra for Gemini, or one of the talking points of Gemini, is let instability do its work. I really like it. It's a really great sentence. Sometimes life is really messy, and sometimes life can disappoint us. And rather than sort of suck it up and course correct and try and avoid the Tower, sometimes the Tower is really freeing. It can be a jolt to the system. It can be something that shakes us up and kind of shakes us awake as well. In some way, these queens could be in your company and they could be supporting you through this Tower. The Queen of Fire, I think, in their most helpful and most beautiful light, is someone that will be talking you up and will be really supporting you and finding solutions too. There's something sort of magical about the Queen of Fire that is, she's sort of doing work behind the scenes, you know, she's sort of making little, casting little things here and there to sort stuff out, whereas the Queen of Cups is someone who's like a sort of counselor, someone who's listening, someone who's there for you, who will hold you. Physical touch is so healing. So maybe at this full moon it might be something that's going on for you, Aquarius, where you can sort of decipher in your mind through my garbled descriptions of these queens. But look, it's not the first time that they've been coming out for us. I'm shocked and feel so blessed that tarot works the way that it does, because we can continue this conversation that we've been having for some months now. There's a Queen of Fire and there's a Queen of Cups in your company. And perhaps this Tower is sort of leveled the playing field for you. And perhaps you can take and receive the support that's coming from either side of you. You can see that they're flanking you in some way. Perhaps this Tower has something to do with one of these queens too. And what I would probably my advice for you, Aquarius, there's a tower with one. Don't go scampering to the other. Yeah, I don't know why that's the advice, but yeah. If there's been a tower moment with one of these queens, don't go scampering to the other. Perhaps allow this tower to jolt you awake and to look around and to recognize how strong your back has become and how your support is sort of coming from here now. I like these cards, don't you? The box is over there and I wish that I could see the name. I promise you I'll tell you who made them. They're a Scottish artist. I'll tell you next time. If you're still here with me, Aquarius, do drop me a star in the comments. I would really appreciate that very much. You can get your birth chart read by me at umaruby.com. I actually have an example of what's in store for you here. My style and my sort of process has developed over the years that I've been doing this, and I started off just with scribbles and notes to sort of keep so I could remember of, the different aspects and things like that. But with a sort of time and care and simplicity, I sort of create a little artwork for each reading too. The charts, I'm really proud with the way that they've come out, and there's something about my drawing them out with my hand that sort of has the information take and hold in my body. So if you want your birth chart read, this is what they kind of look like, and I use the tarot too in relationship to that. You can tip me at buymeacoffee.com, and I'll be with you in 2 weeks, and we'll discuss the new moon in Leo. And so this will be a moment of manifestation for your intimate relationships. You've got power over the next one, Aquarius. I wonder what you'll do with it after the gush and the flood and release of this full moon in your soul center. Much love to you. Sign up to my newsletter if you want to, although I did miss out on No, I didn't miss out. I've got my own system going on. I'm trying to loosen things up and not feel so chained to my own rhythm. Anyway, I'm babbling on now. Bye, Aquarius. Love you. Bye. Hello, Gemini rising. Welcome to your horoscope for the full moon in Aquarius. This is happening on the 2nd of August at 4:33 a.m. if you're in the Southern Hemisphere with me. So again, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, if you wanted to get up super early and witness the moon exactly full, then you're going to have to do that at 4:30. So up to you. I wanted to do a little bit of aftercare before we go anywhere. The Mars and Saturn opposition that I talked about in last fortnight's horoscope did bring with it possibly some real disaster and some real tension as I look out and witness the lives of people close to me. I have on a multitude of different occasions come to see that sort of astrology manifest a little bit. Mars and Saturn were opposing your most public self and your most private self, your 4th house and your 10th house. There was possibly some explosion that perhaps occurred in your private world in your 4th house that was in direct effect to your public self, to your career, your legacy, what you wish to be known for. Now, I want you to remember that Saturn is going to be in Pisces in your 10th house for the next little bit of time, for the next 2 years or so. So this is something that we can rely on, and that if we really harness it, we can work with it. Mars is a quick moving energy. Mars does combust and blow up things. The great thing that's happening at this full moon in Aquarius is that Mercury has taken Mars's place in that opposition to Saturn. And so as far as aftercare, as far as extra information, perhaps in regard to that conflict or that blow up, you can probably trust that at this full moon, in fact, a couple of hours after, about 7 a.m. on the Wednesday, Mercury will have taken up that exact opposition with Saturn again. There might be some doubt maybe attached to that. Definitely, I reckon there's going to be some further intelligence that is revealed about said blow up. I really believe that to be true, Gemini. Remember that Mercury rules your sign. It also rules Virgo. So Mercury is like happy as Larry in Virgo. So they're going to be bringing with them some real tangible, grounded, possible solutions to how we can move with this rupture in the 4th house of your home environment. That's what I wanted to say about that. Let's go back to Aquarius for a moment and think about the significations of the sign in regard to your 9th house, which is where we expand our mind. It's where we publish what we know, where we seek out a mentor as well. There's a lot of moving around that happens in the 9th. I sometimes think about university, or I think about definitely a mentorship where there is formal lessons that are handed down and there's a spreading of information. Sometimes there can be a sort of position of a guide in the 9th house. In Hellenistic astrology, the 9th house was called the house of God, in opposition to the 3rd, which is the house of the goddess. So I like that sort of dance around that polarity too. If we're going to speak in binary terms, we know that we do this, and so we incorporate both. So Aquarius is the sign that innovates. Aquarius is the sign that is bringing all of this extra kind of deluge of technology at the moment. We really kind of feel that the pedal is to the metal right now as far as artificial intelligence and the fear of that sort of thing, and the way that we're all actually engaging with our technology glued to our hands and faces and all of that kind of stuff. In its brightest, most helpful expression, Aquarius strategizes to problem solve for us. Aquarius is the star in the tarot, and there's a great deal of sort of empathy and emotional movement in that card. So I like to think of Aquarius as being some sort of humanitarian or some sort of revolutionary figure. So if you can relate that to your 9th house, which could be your academia, it could be your university study, it could be your position as a guide. It also could be a sort of journey that you're willing and wanting to go on as far as the lessons that you want to know. Do you want to fill up your cup with some knowledge? You might be journeying and traveling towards that knowledge. It's a full moon, so it does feel like a sort of culmination or a release. So I'm not sure if you're about to, maybe hit send on an essay, or if you're about to book a ticket somewhere, or you're about to kind of sit with yourself and realize that if you're held in place at the moment, then it's for some sort of purpose. There might be a sort of letting go of the wanderlust for you at this full moon too. And probably with this tension between your public self, the boundary of Saturn in your legacy, and the fire that Mercury is now putting out in your 4th house, might have you held in place, Gemini. It might have you not being able to move around at the moment, and that's all right too. That's okay too. Full moons are interesting because they can be like a crescendo, in a beautiful suite of music. That sort of swelling can sort of happen at a full moon. It can also be a fond farewell, a wave goodbye. Yeah, we try and get the tension off our back. Maybe if we've been thinking about ourselves and our limitations, then this full moon in Aquarius would be a great time to send some of those packing as well. The tarot card for 9 degrees of Aquarius, which is where this moon is taking place, is the 5 of Swords. There has been a sparring of the minds. There's been truth weaponized, I think, in this card. It's not an easy one, but it's definitely something that Aquarius can work with. Because if you notice in the background, those two folks have dropped the chop. They're like out of here. They're setting this down. They're not engaging in this fight anymore, and they're moving on. The figure in the foreground is collecting their spoils of war, but they don't look victorious to me. They look kind of smug. So if in any way this scenario is something that you can see being emulating your life at the moment, or a circumstance that you've just been through, potentially with Mars and Saturn in their face-off last week, or I think it was the 23rd or the 24th, just after the full moon. If that's what you had to deal with, then know that you're a part of something. And I don't wish to say everything happens for a reason, and love and light and expand and find a high frequency. I'm getting less and less and less involved in that sort of language. I know that it's helpful for a lot of people, I really do. And I know that its intention is really sweet and really kind. And I also know the physical effect of a high vibration and of sort of, journeying in that sort of spiritual way. I also know the profound importance of doing our quiet work with our shadow and disappointment and sorrow as well. And this is sometimes, and maybe it's because I like to wear black a lot, but I find that this is where tarot can be the most helpful. And this is where astrology too can sometimes be really helpful when dealing with the stickier stuff. This opposition with Mars and Saturn can be a signifier for you that there was a test, or there was a break in the flow. And one of my favorite authors on the subject, Chani Nicholas, says that astrology is for radical self-acceptance. So if we find ourselves in a real moment of distress, we find ourselves in our sword mentality, and maybe this is showing up for you, Gemini, because you are part of the swords family too. You're an air sign. If this is becoming a cage, then we can look to the astrology to radically accept ourselves. I don't know if you know Chani Nicholas's work. If you don't, jump on board. Because I've got to say, there is something so comprehensive about the amount of content and lessons that her company shares. There's also something so gentle and sweet and understanding about the style of reading, the style of astrology that Chani engages in. It includes all of us on every level, and I think that it's beautiful. So if you needed somebody else to listen to, not just your Auntie Uma, then I would pop over to Chani. What else do we have going on? Let's have a little look-see. Yeah, so let's come back to, I'm going to get some tarot as well, but let's come back to Venus retrograde in Leo. So we're in the middle of Leo season, and we know that Venus stationed retrograde on the 23rd of this month, and sort of in that sort of cluster of face-off with Mars and Saturn, Venus was like, let's take it slow. And so Venus will be in your third house, the house of the goddess, for the next couple of months. I think until October is when they finally station retrograde. There's insistence on pleasure. There's calling back to the private, quiet nature of the third house, our village. There's another kind of ritual that can be engaged in the third house. It's gentle. The ninth can be really foreboding, especially when we all have our eyes on the prize. It's sort of like, I want to be the best at my thing. I want to, climb that ladder. That can sometimes have us staring at the ninth house with trepidation. And this is when our swords come out and we think, well, maybe I'm just bullshitting, maybe I'm not smart enough to actually do this, or maybe my contribution isn't really worth it. When that ever happens for you in the 9th house, an Aquarius full moon's a great time to let that go. Also, remember where the sun is, in direct opposition, in Leo, warming up your goddess house, your house of tarot, your house of lessons that are shared with the voice rather than with textbooks. Think about Venus here. Think about Venus retrograde in your house of the goddess, Gemini. I think that's really beautiful, and I think that's going to help you through the next round, the next stuff that we have to deal with. And I got the 10 of Swords, the 9 of Pentacles, and the 6 of Wands. Yeah. This is finished with, Gemini, the end of a very difficult cycle, the end of a very difficult thought pattern, the end of a very difficult argument, potentially. But there's 10 swords here. That's the end. It's over. And I'll tell you, and I will always tell you, but the sun is rising in the background of the 10 of swords. So we get to start again after the 10. Whatever conflict that you've been dealing with in the mind, in relationships, or otherwise, this tension is going to break. And with a gentle hand, and with as much time as you need as well, you'll be able to put yourself back together, and you'll be able to feel the 9 of Pentacles in your sort of ecosystem. I've got another version actually of the 9 of Pentacles here. I have it out because Mars, the planet, after the tension and the explosion of the face-off with Saturn, Mars has actually moved to the 2nd decan of Virgo. And this is the 9 of Pentacles. This is autonomy. This is standing on your own 2 feet in the sunshine and realizing that you're going to be okay by yourself. If you're kind to yourself, then you always have a friend. Mars is in trine with Jupiter right now in Taurus, and that's in your 12th house, your hidden realm. Jupiter is expanding and healing your inner workings, the private parts of you that you don't talk about. There might be some inner work that you're doing that you can feel the support from Jupiter, and that can make you a bit braver as well. So, the 6 of Wands talks about a grand celebration. It's almost like a victory lap. The Wands are magic. The Wands and the 6 Wands have all eyes on you, honey. So take this time to cocoon and to lick your wounds from the 10 of Swords. It's okay, it's going to be all right. The 4th house and the ruptures in the 4th house, they are some of the most difficult ones to bear because it's private. It might have to do with your ancestral lines too. It could have to do with your family or folks that feel like family. There could have been a face-off there. But Mars is still in that house for you, but now in trine with Jupiter. And so this is where I want you to be eventually. But take as much time as you need, Gemini. Because the 10 of Swords is actually one of your cards. The 10 of Swords is the final decan of Gemini. So depending on where your rising placement is, this might be a card that you're very familiar with. And it might be a card that you are here to do the work with and to possibly help others do that work too. The sun always rises after the 10 Gemini. I want you to remember that and never, let that go, okay? You're loved, you're protected at this full moon. Any lofty aspiration that hasn't been able to be met, kiss it goodbye. Any labor of love and hard work that you've been toiling on, that you're ready to present into the world, hold it up under your chin, because you've done really well, and we all can't wait to see it. That's your reading, Gemini. Thank you very much for being here with me. If you're still here, put a star in the comments. I would really appreciate that very much. You can head to umaruby.com and get your birth chart read by me. Now, this is actually an example of my birth charts. So my style and my process has developed over the years that I've been doing this, and I make a drawing for everyone that I read for now. It helps me get your astrology into my body. I used to just make little chicken scratches and scribbles and notes, jot things down. It was a bit chaotic, but it worked. Now I find that this gives me much more of a flow. And if I take the time, it doesn't take much longer than actually jotting down some notes. But then I have a beautiful little artwork to share with you too as well. So head to umaruby.com and book your birth chart with me if you'd like. You can tip me at buymeacoffee.com/umaruby, and I'll be with you in 2 weeks and we'll discuss the new moon in Leo. So until then, Gemini, I'm wrapping you up in a beautiful warm blanket. Take good care. I love you. Bye.